Good evening. This is Maureen with the Ayurveda Cafe, and this week I'm with Jim Pace, and Jim is going to share the concept and definition of food according to the understanding and practical application of Vaidya Mishra's Shaka Vansya Ayurveda lineage. So we're talking about food this evening. Jim will touch upon food for the light of the soul, what is considered wholesome food, sattvic food, why certain foods contain enhanced prana and others don't, the benefits and the consequences of adhering or not adhering to Vaidya Mishra's dietary guidelines. Awesome. Well, I also just want to say that I believe this is our Ayurveda Cafe 9. So with that, Jim, you're on. How are you this evening?
Good. Ready to go and talk about something very important in our lives because we eat. That is how we stay alive, number one, next to breathing. But that's something we don't have to think a lot about. But we do have to put some thought and effort into our diet, more than what most of us learn to do. Because as you're going to learn that good food supports many different aspects of the mind, the emotions, the senses, the physiology, in addition to supporting the physical body in terms of its bala, its energy, its strength, its resistance to disease, and many other considerations. So good food is very important. And I have a lot to talk about tonight. And so tonight we'll try to keep it to make this lecture into a two-part event rather than covering it all in one go. So I will start by saying, I met Dr. Mishra in 2003, and and right away I learned that he put a lot of emphasis on eating good food prepared in the proper way with the right spices and consumed fresh and eaten on time and many other do's and don'ts that many people in Ayurveda are already very aware of, nothing new to them. But he really emphasized these much more than, I think, I'm speaking from not hypothesis, but I think perhaps more than any other Vaidya, he put more emphasis on diet than any other Vaidya, any other Ayurvedic practitioner. And sitting with him in his consultations, he was very strict with his dietary recommendations, and he would tell certain patients, not all of them, because he was very intuitive to see the person's reaction in their face, and he could tell whether they were willing to make at least some effort to change. And if they weren't, he could tell they weren't open to what his diet was about. Not that they couldn't do it. It's not that complicated. Sorry about the sound.
Okay.
He used to tell these people that I can see by your face you're not ready to follow. He wouldn't say not willing. He would say you're not ready to follow my dietary guidelines. And if you don't do that, I can give you all the herbs I have, the best herbs, and other suggestions and recommendations, but they're not going to help you that much, if at all. So the purpose of tonight is to learn about the SVA diet and what it can do for our own life. And let me just say, Vaidya Mishra was a great cook. He cooked at my house many, many times. He wasn't the most, how would I put it, the tidiest of cooks. But that was my job to do the clean up afterwards. But when it comes to flavor and feeling good when you ate his food, that was always very at the top. But but Vaidya Mishra, whenever he did something, whenever he taught any subject, he would never just teach a theory. He always had a practical application. He always applied those principles in a very practical way. And he did that also for cooking. He taught a lot of cooking courses, and he made and sells on his website, chandika.com, many types of cooking spices, cooking masalas. He has a lot of chutneys and preserves, like a prune chutney, what else do we have? Prune and cranberry and tamarind and wild amla, and they're delicious. And you feel the bliss in one bite. You can feel the pranic energy. And he also made fast. He knows that we're busy, so he wanted to make things easy for us. So he made pre-assembled fast cooking khichdi pouches, which you just open and put in the water. Everything that you need is there: salt, ghee, spices, the khichdi, the rice, the mung dal, and sometimes other things like quinoa or kulti, I think, may be in there. But he made these things like 6 or 7 different kind of pouches to make it easiest for us to eat khichdi when we wanted that. And he also made organic probiotic ghee, which he sells. He made these mung wadis. You know what a wadi is, or a wadi? They're like a little dumpling. They're hard as can be when they're in the package, but you put them in the water and they cook with your vegetables, and they're a good source of protein. They're very tasty because they have spices in them, and they're a little bit crunchy even when you cook them for a long time. But they're very delicious, and they have a good amount of protein. And so, in addition to making all the products, he taught several cooking courses over many years, and I assisted him with 2 of those cooking courses, one in Fort Myers, Florida, which is available by DVD. It's a 5 DVD set. I don't know, I can't remember the exact name, but Food is Medicine, Fort Myers, Florida. And he has a Food is Medicine, Michigan, which he gave in coordination with Dr. Sandra Brown, who's an MD who loved Vaidya Mishra, and he would go to her place and see patients, and she's the best. You have to see Dr. Sandra Brown's testimonials in her own life, how her high blood pressure was got off the roof, and how changing her diet, following Vaidya Mishra's diet, she got her blood pressure under control and started running from like 2 miles a day to 6, 8 miles a day. Big changes in her life from following the diet. She was super surprised herself that it worked that well after a few months. And he also wrote a cookbook, and that is Ayurveda Cooking for Balance and Bliss. Literally has hundreds of recipes in addition to Ayurvedic knowledge about different spices and herbs. It's out of print presently. It has been for over 2 or 3 years. We're still working on getting it back to print, but that is Ayurveda Cooking for Balance and Bliss. And for those of you that understand a little bit about Ayurveda, or maybe a lot about Ayurveda, Vaidya Mishra, and I mentioned this early on in some of the earlier cafes, that Vaidya Mishra doesn't say, this person should follow a Vata diet, this person follows a Pitta diet, this person follows a Kapha diet. Sometimes he may emphasize one dosha, 2 doshas more than the others, depending on the person, the season, and so forth. But by and large, no matter what your body type, constitution, prakriti may be, he always talks about eating food with lots of pranic energy. And so that is what we will talk about tonight, not the VPK perspective, which has been talked about over and over again and again since Ayurveda came to the West. We have to understand that also, but in the Swa lineage, the Shaka Vansya Ayurveda lineage, the primary emphasis for diet is on eating intelligent food, cooked in the right way. Many factors. I won't cover all those, but let's start with the basics. First, it has to be intelligent food. So we'll start talking about that. There's a Ayurvedic textbook. It's the oldest one. It's called the Charak Samhita or Sanghita, the oldest textbook of Ayurveda. Still used today. It's still #1 principal medical text used in Ayurveda colleges. There are others, but that is #1. And in the Charak Samhita, Charak, who compiled all this knowledge, he went by the name of Charak, he said there are 3 life-supporting pillars. Prana is what supports our life, that nature's intelligence that comes to us from many different sources, sun, moon, air, water, good water, food, from our breath. So the pranic energy is the number one support. But what supports prana? Now that is interesting because that is called the Triya Upastamba. Upa means near to. Tri is three. So to support the whole pranic energy, we have three Upastamba, three pillars like a tripod that support prana. And when it comes to Ayurveda, Vaidya Mishra taught me that when you read a text, the hierarchy matters, how the words, the sequence in which they are written and listed. And the first pillar of the three pillars, the Upastamba, is called ahar. And in general terms, we're going to learn deeper meaning, but in general terms, ahar is our food. And that is the first pillar that supports our pranic energy. And then we have nidra, or sleep, proper. But really, Vajra says it's not just about sleep, it's a proper balance of rest and activity. Uh, that is the second pillar. The middle pillar of these three supporting pillars of prana is our sleep, or the balance of rest and activity. And the third one that comes is called brahmacharya, which many people will translate to mean to be and to mean celibacy, but it's not, it includes that in certain situations, but it's not the meaning. The real meaning is to follow the code of conduct established by Mother Nature, to follow the laws of nature. And there's many different laws of nature, not just, the one. So again, what do they support? The pillars, they support the reception, flow, and delivery of prana. Because life is the flow of prana. Dehasam yoge ayuhu. What is life? Life is the flow of prana. Therefore, our health, our life, and our happiness, our intelligence, everything depends on the proper reception and flow of prana. And food, as just mentioned, is given position number one in the hierarchy. So let's talk a little deeper about this ahar, what food is according to Ayurveda. It's all in the Charak Samhita and many other texts. It's called ahar, but break it down, it's ahar. And I'm going to read a little bit from Vaidya Mishra's own words. He says, when you chant this word ah, this sound, this is the eternal syllable which creates om, but the first sound of om is ah. It goes to your heart. You chant go ah, where do you feel it? Not in your head. You feel it in the center of your chest. Ah, it doesn't stay here in the head. It goes to your heart. So everyone's watching here tonight probably is familiar with the namaste. So we salute your God within you. Everybody has the vibration of God. And that's why when you say ah, the vibration will go to your vibration of your soul. Har means merging, like a complete interaction, like a complete takeover. And that's the kind of food that we should consume. Food should have that quality that has the vibrational power of God, which can directly reach to the vibration of God within you. That is the ahar. That ah of the food merges with your ah. That's the food that your soul likes. And food should have that power. And Vaidya Mishra would say, if that power, if that vibrational energy of God is not in your food, that is not your food. The food is not going to give you 100% benefit of the food. Yes, physical nutrition, keep you alive. Yes. Eventually make you sick. Yes. But it's not going to give you the 100% benefit. So that ahar is food to the light of your soul. Now, but your soul doesn't need any food, but the light of the soul, which is called sattva, needs vibrational support. Sattva, your soul's light, vibrational energy that's creating you, needs to be fed this vibration, a good vibration, which will support your mind. And when you support your mind, you also take care of your sense organs. And we need our senses to work properly. They do bring us They are the connecting factor between the outer world and the soul, the light of the soul, through the brain, through the mind, physical brain and the mind. So the light is very powerful, but it has no ability to get directly from your senses. The mind and the brain are there in between. So you need your mind. You need your mind to be sattvic. You need your physical brain to be well fed with good oils like probiotic ghee and good fats that support your mind, and good spices like turmeric that uh, keep your liver healthy, and thus keep your blood healthy, and thus keep your brain healthy. So you need your physical brain and your mind to get information and process that information. And you need your mind to be connected to the light of your soul, the God within you. Well, a few weeks ago, I mentioned the definition of health in Ayurveda, probably in the second talk, and the simple definition, but the most powerful definition, which we can elaborate on with bigger definitions, called swasmin tishtati iti swastaha, which basically means whose mind is always stays connected to the light of the soul. That person is healthy. And Vaidya says, sounds simple. It is, but it's not simple to do. Because the nature of the senses is to want to enjoy the world. And if the mind gets taken over by the senses, which happens all the time, just about everyone, even Vaidya Mishra once asked his father, I'm a Brahmin dad, and sometimes, I crave this and I crave that. Why? I don't understand. We're doing all the good things, but yet sometimes I still have these desires for things with my senses. He said, that's the nature of the senses. It can happen. So don't feel don't feel bad about that. Um, but when it does happen, that your mind gets possessed by the horses or sense organs, we can make mistakes in our life. We can do things which we either know consciously are not good for us, or things that we don't even know are not good for us, but we do them anyway. We make mistakes. And then the horses will take us away from whatever is good for us. Because I love Vaidya Mishra's way of explaining this. He said, these horses don't want to learn. They don't want to go to traffic school. He said, they want to have fun. They don't care about your body. They don't care about your light, because they know they're not coming back the next lifetime. So he says, by hook or crook, they want to enjoy this world. But he always gave us practical ways to, one of which is the good food, to keep our senses more balanced and not going crazy. So another word I believe a lot of people tonight have heard is called satmia. Noreen, you've heard the word satmia?
I think, yeah, yes. How are you spelling it?
Satmya.
Okay, like, what is it? Okasatmia?
Well, that's one kind of satmia. That means
Right.
suitable by
Okay.
habitual use. But
Right.
satmia means, atmia means the soul. And satmia, sa means with, so it means with the soul. So satmia means suitable food for you. And there are a lot of translations says, well, if the food is satmia, if you're not allergic to it. You will see those kind of translations. But the deeper meaning and broader meaning is food that is suitable for your soul, like ahar, satmia, suitable for your light of your soul. So food should have the vibration which is good for the light of your soul. That is satmia. And when we eat food, you see, good food has a vibrational energy that from the nature that created that food. And that vibrational energy is like a rhythm. It has its own, the food has its own vibrational rhythm. And what we eat should not be out of rhythm with the universe. Um, it should be in rhythm with the cosmic energy of the universe, the pranic energy, the food that we consume. Um, so the vibration in the food should not be corrupted. It should be there as made by God so that the rhythm of the food is not out of rhythm with the universe, the cosmic energy. And that is sattvic food. Your light, soul light, has its own rhythm. And when you say ah, the rhythm goes to your heart because the soul is centered in this middle of the heart lotus, which is centered in the middle of the chest. That's why we can chant mantras. Everybody knows we say or prayer, but especially the Vedic mantras for food. There, people are familiar with those, like for Annapurna, goddess of food. The different mantras, the vibration of that mantra will enter that food, and that vibration will go into our light and help correct out of rhythm, arrhythmic rhythms in the light of our own soul. So food should catch the vibration. Of course, dead food, you can probably channel the dead food. It's not going to catch the vibration. But good food, you're going to infuse the food, the good food, with even more pranic energy. And the ancient seers of Ayurveda, they knew all about the rhythmic knowledge of food. They knew about the physical properties, the gunas. They knew about the potency, the virya. They knew about the rasa, the taste. They knew about the vipak, the post-digestion, what happens after you digest it later on, how it affects the physiology. They know how it affected vata, pitta, kapha. And they know how much soma is in different food, vibrational energy of the moon, how much agni, vibrational power we get from the sun, is in the food, and the marut, the etheric energy, is in the food. So they had all that knowledge, but not just the physical understanding of the food, especially not like Western medical science. The model of the West is to put things into parts rather than start from the wholeness, but starting from the parts and not even getting to the wholeness. But Ayurveda starts from totality and explains how it fits, and the parts fit into that. So they knew all about the rhythmic pranic energy of the food. And if you take even the best food, you put it in the microwave, what's going to happen? Right? You think that food has any rhythm left in it when you microwave it, which penetrates, that corrupt energy penetrates so deep into the molecules of the food, corrupt vibrational energy, totally, it would destroy all that when you microwave even the best of foods. Not, if it's a leftover dumb dead food, it's already dead. But that corrupt agni, that corrupt marut from the microwave would destroy any prana that it was, if it was originally there. So food has its own rhythm, and that should vibrate with our internal rhythm. Because you see in Ayurveda, there are three kind of basic materials. There are many kind of materials, many kinds of dravyas, substances. But one is called adrishya, totally non-visible. Like prana is non-visible. Soma, Agni, Marut are non-visible. Then we have semi-visible, like the Panchamahabhut, the 5 elements. And then we have the things that we can see. That's the drishya bhuta, which we can see with our sense organs. So prana is the energy of nature. It's a dynamic energy of nature, which comes from the silence of nature, space element, which the first sound of space is ah. So prana has a connection with the silence, and it becomes dynamic. So that pranic energy, when that apple is on the tree, when that pear is on the tree, when those spices are in the process of growing, those grains, those vegetables, when they're in their natural, unspoiled form, that pranic energy is there. But again, you cannot detect that. You can feel that when you consume it, but there's no instrument that will detect it. Okay, so we're talking about, now what is this pranic food? So I just kind of went into what pranic food is. It's natural, it's unspoiled, it has vibrational energy that feeds our body, our mind, our senses, our soul. But pranic food is food with nature's maximum intelligence. and also pranic food, because you can even have pranic food and not really get benefit from it if you don't prepare. It depends on what it is, but if you don't prepare it the proper way. There's a lot of this raw food diet, which you're not going to get the benefit of the food if you consume some things can be consumed raw. Ayurveda goes into those details, but most things you need to cook. You need to infuse some fire vibration into the food, help you digest it, assimilate it, metabolize it. So we cook food with water. We use proper spices for the individual. We use proper oils like virgin olive oil or probiotic ghee. And when you do that, you activate the water soluble energy in the food and spices. Those nutrients that are water soluble, and they enter into your cellular system, the water soluble area. And then we have ghee and olive oil, you get the lipid soluble portion, which goes to your lipid areas of the cellular system. So, and the spices, there's so many, Vaidya would say the spices are the grammar of cooking. You can take one sentence, depending on how you punctuate it, make it sound very different. And a person will get a different impression of that same words. Likewise, same food, depending on the spices, the grammar that you use in your cooking, you're going to get different benefits and different effects, different energies, which we need, like cooking with turmeric and fennel and coriander and black pepper and ginger, cumin, so many different spices. Vaidya's basic spices are cumin. For anyone, he has a basic spice mix, which is a fennel, coriander, cumin, and turmeric. Turmeric being the least of the proportion in that spice mix. And then we should eat organic food. I think we know that. And then we need to have intelligent protein and intelligent fat, not pig fat, right? Not heavy red meat for our protein, maybe organic chicken for non-vegetarians or paneer for vegetarians. And the good kind of ghee is probiotic ghee, which is Vaidya was the first one to sell it in the West, to my knowledge. He said it's not something that I came up with. It's in the text, and it's a traditional way of making ghee in India. But today you'll find many people who sell ghee are now making probiotic ghee, also here in Fairfield, Iowa. But Vaidya was probably the first one to make it readily available, or even to talk about the benefits of it. And then the other thing is, don't eat processed food. As bored as it's very hard not to, I will agree, especially if you're going to eat out. It's almost impossible, which is why I just said cook your own food at home where you have control over everything. But don't eat processed food. Don't eat things from the box. There are some things like a grain or cereal you can have from the box or the bin or whatever, but these highly processed foods like processed meats and canned food and cooked and then frozen foods are very bad. No prana there. Will create toxins. But there are some, if they're not cooked, he would recommend, he calls it flash frozen vegetables, which come from India. You can't find here, like suran, he recommends. And there are others. He says they're generally okay because they don't cook them. They pick them and they freeze them right away, and they retain intelligence. But basically, processed food, anything that's stored for a long, long time, you can forget about that food having any pranic intelligence remaining. So, what is bad food according to Ayurveda? One would be overcooked vegetables. And if you go to a lot of Indian restaurants, you'll find that, but they're not alone in that doing that. And you can have undercooked vegetables for that matter too. So basically, food that is medium cooked, not too much, not too little. And then we have a lot of issues with white flour, which most of us grew up on, the sliced bread, the Wonder Bread, and whatever it might be. But that processed white flour and dumb and dead carbohydrates like spaghetti, ramen noodles, all those sort of things. And then another bad food we could say is almost all non-organic foods because pesticides destroy prana. A lot of research of, how pesticides uh, are implicated in many diseases. This is Western medical research. They have done, they've done their research on that, and they've, but we say pesticides kill the prana, number one. And then any highly refined food doesn't, like white sugar, instead of eating natural sucanat or organic sugar, we're not talking about brown sugar, that's also processed. We're talking about don't eat refined sugars. Even Western medicine sees the implications in many types of diseases, diabetes and heart diseases and cancers. And then you have pre-cooked food and canned food. They don't have any prana. And next week, I'm going to go into more detail. I won't get to it tonight. We're going to talk about nightshades. This is a big problem I see in Fairfield, and you'll see it everywhere. And I see so many people eating so many foods that clog their physical channels and their vibrational channels. And believe you me, if I didn't meet Vaidya Mishra, I would be eating those things too and not know why I didn't feel well. I would still be doing it. And these nightshades are tomatoes and potatoes and bell peppers and eggplants. They corrupt the vibrational channels. They have neurotoxins. And there is a TM governor. She's a chiropractor, and I think she's kind of retired, or maybe she's working in Boulder now. Her name was Lisa Raskin. And Lisa Raskin, Vaidya Mishra, he asked her to do research on the nightshades, and she came up with lots of information about the dangers of nightshades, the story of nightshades historically, where they came from. They weren't part of Indian cooking. No, they weren't. The Mughals brought those to India. It wasn't part of Vedic cooking. Never. All these things. They clog your physical channels and your vibrational channels. Then you have things like, which everybody loves here, and I feel like saying don't eat that. I know what I'm talking about, but people aren't going to listen to me. I feel like saying don't eat those winter squashes. Summer squashes. Right? Don't eat those winter squashes. But everywhere you go, they have the winter squash, big channel clogger. And Vaidya Mishra liked him too, and he got a cyst from him when he was, I think he was, and he had his father ask him, "Are you eating those gourds?" He said, "Yeah, Dad, I was eating the gourds." He says, "That's why you have that cyst." And then too much of anything is not good. We need a proper balance of all six tastes. You can't just eat sour food. Can't just eat salt all the time by any means of the imagination. And speaking of salt, that's very important to eat the right kind of salt. Can't just eat sweets all day. Can't eat things that are astringent or pungent and spicy all day. No, you have to follow the middle path. But basically, our sweet taste, but we're not talking sugar, is the number one taste we need, and some sour, salty, and the astringent and the bitter and the pungent are the least of the tastes normally that we should choose for ourselves. And then one other thing that's very dead is fried food. Vaidya Mishra said, "Do you like to eat the dead body? Because how do you expect to get life from the dead body? Because that's what you're eating when you eat fried foods. Although they are tasty. We know that, right? Even those Indian pakoras and bhajis, they're very flavorful, but they use bad oil and bad salt and when they cook them. A lot of reasons why they're so bad, besides the frying them. So how much time do we have before you want to ask questions? I have a lot.
We can, this is a good time to transition into
Well,
questions. Or you want to go a little bit further?
Let me see. I have a lot on this one. If you think it's I think we should go to questions because next I'm going to talk about what are the benefits of eating intelligent food, and then what are the benefits of eating what are the consequences of eating bad food, and I have a lot for that.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's plenty that you've already talked about that. I have some questions, and then perhaps Linda has some questions too. Yeah. Let's start with Okay. Just looking at what you, were there other cooking courses that Vaidya Mishra taught besides Buddhist medicine?
Yes, there's immunity and protein, which is taught in Carpinteria, California. We don't even have it. Well, we might have recorded it, but we don't have the DVDs. There was a cooking course at Arsha Vidya Gurukulam in Pennsylvania that I assisted with. So there's Buddhist medicine, Fort Myers, Michigan. Again, we may have the one in Pennsylvania. I have to research that. But there's
I was just
immunity.
wondering about the
But
immunity course as well.
there's immunity and protein, which was
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's good. I just wanted to know if there's other titles. And then I like what you said about with Vaidya Mishra, it's not just theory, but it's the practical application that is important. Both go hand in hand, and that applies to cooking. I was listening to something today, Melanie Sachs, who's done a lot with Ayurvedic beauty, but actually started studying food, macrobiotics, and then came to Ayurveda. I did something similar, and she said the first thing she does with clients is she asks them if they cook. So a lot of people just don't cook. So do they want to learn? Do they want to learn to cook? And what's their time? What's their schedule? Because if you make it too complicated, people are just not going to do it. There's just no way. So
yes, there are many different levels you can aspire to. But Vaidya Mishra also had this very quick way he called it his rice cooker cooking. You have recipes, you just have that Panasonic timer and you just throw the things in there with certain spices and let it cook. You
sure.
get
Okay.
But you have to do something. I know a lot of people say, well, I won't do it. What I tell you, all we have to do is go out in the public. And I see it in Fairfield every day. And you can't, if you're going to practice Ayurveda, you have to practice Ayurveda. You can't just say, well, I can't tell these people. Well, yeah, you have to tell the people that. You have to. Don't expect them to do it tomorrow. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it.
Yeah. No, but absolutely. Actually, you bring up a good point about the rice cooker, because I think in macrobiotic cooking is a big part of macrobiotics, which comes from Japan. And the energy of the food is super important, especially cooking on gas is super important, and cooking on the flame. So the rice cooker, of course.
Ideally, we cook on wood, but
right. And then with the rice cooker, you're cooking kind of, you got the electric energy going, and that's not necessarily enhancing prana. It's better than microwave. So I guess
it's better than eating out. Basically, it doesn't.
Right.
What doesn't destroy it? It doesn't enhance it on the one hand, but it doesn't totally destroy it.
Yeah. So there's kind of a
rice cooker are you talking about now? This is not the Instapot kind of a thing, but those open rice cookers. That's the
no. There's the ones that are closed, and they have pressure settings, for cooking the things that need pressure, a little faster cooking. Or you can make them cook on a longer setting. It depends. It's probably a better way to do it on a little bit longer setting. But Vaidya,
I was just wondering if he had any feelings about cooking on gas. We have different things. We got the electric stove, we got the Instant Pot, which is also electric, which I used a lot because it's easy. Of course, you got the rice cooker that's electric.
He would prefer gas.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was curious. And in macrobiotics, they do a lot with pressure cooking, because pressure cooking has a certain energetic quality that you feel really energized after eating food that's pressure cooked.
Well, it's probably got it because it's under pressure. It would be my guess that it infuses more marut prana into the food.
It gives you a lot. So the cooking method itself has a real, and sometimes not so subtle, but it can have a very profound impact energetically how you feel, you know?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I would say
wanted
it's
to ask because I was under the understanding that if you cook a food really fast, then it will add more vata to the food. So a pressure cooker,
Well,
the food quickly, which might not be so good for
well,
the.
you don't add vata to the food. You might add more marut energy to it because vata is in the living being. The other things are cosmic energies which we interact with, which can increase our vata. I mean, you probably know that, but just I want to point that out. But
I know I can speak from my own personal experience when and pressure cooking to me is more suitable for the winter and the colder months because it's very energizing. So I feel a lot of pranic energy from pressure cooking,
yeah, I would say it gives
you
more
know.
lends more marut to the food. But the
Yeah, I don't feel that scattered energy.
yeah, because
I
if you have somogenic food, then you're balanced out. You're balanced. You know.
yeah,
So you don't
yeah.
think
So
it's bad? Okay, because I've been wondering about that, about cooking with a pressure cooker because it cooks it so fast. But okay.
I love the pressure cooker. I don't know but I don't know what the Ayurvedic view is for the pressure cooker. But personally, I just know with my
Well,
physiology,
we know they
especially in
want
the
to.
not so
Yeah.
much in the summertime, but in the like now moving from autumn and into the colder weather.
We know they went
It's
around.
also very warming as well. It just has a real quality that it's like you have that yang energy. You just got that real energetic quality. It feels good. And you feel very focused.
Just be
I like
careful.
I like it.
They don't blow up
What?
and they don't blow up. They don't blow up and
Well,
put dog. Once
Sorry, what did Jim say? Could you say it again, please? I can't hear
I
what
was
you.
just saying, years
don't let it blow up the pressure
like
cooker.
30 years ago at the TM Center in Atlanta, this old mansion which had these super high ceilings, they blew up the dog.
Well,
The ceiling was
yeah,
like 20 feet up.
they all have safety valves now, but I actually want to get back to the questions, Jim.
Yeah.
Let's we got on a side note there. Okay. Um, do you have any recipes that you recall from his cookbook, Ayurvedic Cooking for Balance and Bliss, that you particularly liked or found to be useful in your own life?
Well, I don't know about me. Probably made some desserts from it. That's probably
Okay.
it, but I didn't, I just mainly I use the vegetables. Some of them are very complicated, some are very simple. So mainly I'm a simple cooker, but I try to use good ingredients and I use the spice mixes and ghee and the good oil. So
Okay.
I didn't follow any, I usually don't follow any lengthy, difficult to do
Sure.
recipes
So you keep it simple. Okay. That's great. That's
unless
perfect.
unless I was at his house and he would cook his way, and it was always great to eat at his home because his food was so delicious and alive.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I like also what you said. You talked about the three pillars of life, but specifically you talked about brahmacharya, which yes, many times we are thinking about brahmacharya as sexuality and particularly celibacy, or at least not necessarily celibacy, but preserving the vital fluids and not excess. But you said that really what it means, according to Vaidya Mishra, is that
Yeah.
we want to be aligned with the laws of nature. It's not limited to sexuality.
Well, that's one aspect of it, but it's not limited to just that. It's limited to our, it's part of our thought thinking process, our speech. All these things are part of that too. It's
Great.
not just
That's
one thing. Yeah.
okay. That's good because that's not necessarily the way that I've thought about brahmacharya. So, and of course, yeah, I like what you said also that um, food is given position number one in terms of enhancing our pranic energy. That if diet isn't right, then other things are not going to work. So and it's really got to be the central focus, at least the primary
Well,
focus.
if you don't have the proper food, your thinking is going to be off, either rajasic or tamasic, and then you're going to make mistakes and do other things that are incorrect for yourself. You won't even, because a lot of times you don't, and I'm going to talk about that, the benefits of the good food. Like, oh, I want to, yeah, I'm very motivated today. I'm going to get this done and that done. Then you go out to some bad restaurant and have some bad food, and you're like, forget about it. Ah,
I find the bad restaurant stuff is not, for me personally, it's like it doesn't necessarily impact me that day when I eat it. I enjoy it that day, but it's the next day that, I'm like, oh, I just, and it's not a situation where I have really feel any indigestion, but it's usually lethargy, you know,
sure, some toxins
j-
got created.
yeah,
You know,
just feeling like, I just don't feel as energetic, a little fatigued, and
fatigue and malaise and senses aren't
yeah,
strong. And yeah, Vaja, when he came to my house to do consults and workshops, we were very, very busy. We always tried to cook, but sometimes he'd say, we're going to cheat. We're going to go out for the.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So,
mean,
but I tell you what, it didn't take more than one meal out, and I don't care how expensive that Indian restaurant was, for him to say, that's it, James. No more eating out. We're not going to do it. My knees are hurting. We're not doing it again.
yeah, yeah. It's very rare that I feel good after eating at an Indian restaurant. So it's just, uh, yeah, I'm sure there's many out there, but I haven't really experienced some. Um, let's see if I have anything else here. I do. Connected to, not easy. Um, yeah, let's talk about cravings.
Hmm.
All right. You said nature of senses is desire and leads to mistake of intellect and, of course, poor choices. Um, food is a big one for cravings, and people have, and a lot of it is, there's a lot of emotional issues around food.
Right.
Is this something that Vaidya Mishra delved into at all in terms of cravings, habits, changing those habits? Emotional eating, dysfunctional
Well,
eating,
emotional eating is due to your heart lotus being closed. Sometimes
Okay.
emotional eating means you're not getting the glucose transformed properly. And he made a special tea, for example. Again, very practical. People are eating all this sugar, their emotions, they want that sugar and those carbohydrates, but they're sitting there. It's not getting utilized. So their cells are crying for the glucose. So he made Tripty tea. Tripty means satisfaction, to help
Okay.
digest the sugars and digest the carbohydrates for those kind of people.
All
Uh,
right.
but yes, again, any craving, there are good cravings and there are bad cravings. There are
Mhm.
physiological cravings that you need that thing. And sometimes people can't tell them apart. And then there are the cravings that are just due to habits, due to the senses want it, uh, due to your energy's low. So you go grab some quick sugar to pick yourself up. Is a very vicious circle, the craving situation. You start eating those
Absolutely.
things that got you into the craving in the first place.
Right. Did Vaidya Mishra have suggestions for
Well, start
how to
eating the
break
good
that
food.
cycle?
Both begin to eat better food. So
Okay.
you have more clarity and you open your heart lotus. So you get communication with a lot of your soul.
Right.
Your mind does rather than your senses taking over. And he would say, your senses want to take you to PF chain. he said,
Right.
he said, it happens to me sometimes.
I haven't been there in a long time, so I didn't even know it existed anymore. I don't know. So, but
I went,
anyway, yeah.
I went with him once in Washington,
Okay.
D.C.
Sure, sure. You talked about mantras, and having your meal and using mantras. An example?
Well, there's Annapurna,
We
very famous chant called Annapurna. It's very short,
Sure.
even though I don't know it by heart.
Right,
Uh,
right. So are
that,
you chanting those mantras before eating?
yeah, blessing,
Okay.
asking Annapurna Devi to bless the food, right?
Sure. Okay. So giving gratitude and thanks for the food, blessing the food.
And it goes into if it's chanted properly, what the vibration that you chant will go into the food.
Sure. Of
You know,
course. Of course. Yeah. Um, did you mentioned just briefly Rasa Virya Vipak? Is that something he emphasized?
of course, he's
Like,
Dravya Guna, of course, he goes into great detail about all those factors.
okay, because I know he doesn't emphasize um the doshas in terms of, we have the vata diet, the pitta diet, the kapha diet. We've
No,
got a
because
variety of things because I love the fact that he's looking at overall, let's look at the pranic energy.
most of the time, people have all three doshas out of balance, almost all the
Sure.
time, in different
Yeah.
proportion. If he
Of
takes your
course.
pill,
Yeah.
he will list what's most out of balance, the next.
Right. Right.
But he says you can, if you practice Ayurveda long enough, I call it chasing doshas. You'll never be successful
Sure.
with that. There are
Right.
times you go one way a little bit more.
Of
It's
course.
cold and windy out, and you're feeling all anxious and nervous.
Oh, yeah. You want to be looking at the weather, and
Yeah.
it's like the pressure cooking in the wintertime, that sort of
Do,
thing.
do warm oil massage. That's not going to hurt you if you're a kapha or a pitta. Still,
Sure.
kapha.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you
But
just follow one thing, then that's
but I was wondering with the rasa virya vipak. I mean, the rasa in Ayurveda, we hear a lot about the six tastes, and the balanced meal incorporates at least one meal a day.
well, he will
Incorporating.
say that too. Yeah, he will say
Okay.
that too.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have here. Prana, connection with silence. I do have more. Prana in the food, pranic food. Okay. The basic spices that you are in his spice mix, it's funny because in Divya Alter's cookbook, and I know she was a student of Vaidya Mishra, her super spice mix, it consists of those spices: fennel, coriander, cumin, and turmeric.
21 spices in super spice mix. 21.
Well, you said in his basic spice mix.
Well, that's, before he made his own and sold his own spice mixes, when he would give a concentrate, he would tailor it to every person. But the basic spice mix, which anyone can handle for the most part, is 6-part fennel, 6-part coriander, toasted, ground.
Yeah,
Toasted.
I love that recipe that Divya Alter has in her cookbook, super spice mix, and it's basically what you just. She was a student of Vaidya Mishra. It's basically what you described: fennel, coriander, cumin, and turmeric. And then you're right. You grind the spices. You have them whole.
You toast them. Toast them.
And then I usually grind them and then toast them afterwards. But it doesn't really matter either way, as long as you don't burn them. That's the key. But that's delicious.
It was 6 parts coriander. It was 6 parts coriander, 6-part cumin. What else was in there?
No, 3 cumin usually. 3 cumin.
And what else?
It's coriander, cumin, fennel, and turmeric. I don't know the proportions. So.
Yeah, but Jim does say he was about to say it. So maybe if
fennel and coriander are 6 each. Cumin is usually 3, but for some people it was not, but generally 3. And turmeric was a 1-part.
Okay.
Now, if someone was Indian, ate turmeric their whole life, you may give them 3-part. But I know what you said, Divya, but see, Vaidya Mishra, he has a spice mix he calls it Mom's Super Spice.
Okay, I've seen that.
That has 21 spices, including the ones we just talked about.
Okay.
All pre-toasted, so you can sprinkle it directly on the food. You don't even have to cook with it. If you're on the go, if you're at a restaurant, you're eating out, you have no choice. You're in the airport. I'd say take yourself some olive oil with you, like I do, some lime juice, squeeze it over the food, put your mom's spice mix on it. It won't make it perfect, but it will help.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be. It's like the prana. If you make it yourself, which is actually no big deal with the coffee grinder.
No, but that spice mix is very chronically preserved. He has a special pouch to maintain the pranic energy. When you open that pouch, you smell it. You feel, everybody says it. It smells incredibly fresh because he has a very inner liner that's non-reactive with anything, and that preserves it. But he says anytime you got something like that or put it in a jar or whatever, every time you open it, you do lose something.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's I haven't tried that spice mix, but I will. I'll definitely try it, and I'll take your word for that. I'm sure
super spice is almost good for everyone except for very high pitta, high adhering, hot summer weather. Certain times of the year you don't necessarily want that. That's why I make
Could
pita
you,
masala.
could you talk a little bit about probiotic ghee? Are you referring to culture ghee?
Yeah, culture ghee.
Could you talk about that versus using uncultured butter?
Uncultured butter to make the ghee can create, again, clogging in your channels, your heart, your high cholesterol, hyper, too much fat, bad accumulating. Cultured ghee is more micromolecules are more refined. They will enter the cells quickly, more readily, and not set outside and block channels. That's the reason behind it. And it's a
Okay,
traditional thing in India from long ago when things were done traditionally, which
sure,
today you can find.
sure,
Believe me, if you want to find bad ghee, buy it at the Indian grocery store. Some of the worst ghee
sure.
you taste.
Okay, are you going to be talking next time you mentioned the nightshades? Are you going to be going more thoroughly into the nightshades?
Yeah, more thoroughly. More
Okay, that's
thoroughly.
fine. Because that's something that also in Western nutrition is, you know, there's many, many people who avoid nightshades. So it's not limited to Ayurveda. So, I mean, a lot of people react to nightshades.
Oh
And,
yeah, yeah.
so anyway, that's good. You're going to cover more of that. I want to talk about those squashes, those winter squashes, which are so absolutely delicious. I
Yep.
love
Yep.
kabocha squash, especially now. It's amazing. I always feel good when I eat it. I don't feel anything. So tell me about this clogging the channels. I've also heard this in Maharishi's Ayurveda class as well about winter squashes and clogging the channels. So
That's the point. They have a prabhava. It doesn't matter what you do to them. You can't cook it out. You can't spice it out. You can't balance it out. Uh, Now, another thing that does, we call vistambi. Vistambi means blocking the channels. Stamba, you know that word stamba. Specific
sure.
stambi or particular blocking, vistambi.
Stopping the flow.
Yeah, they have a prabhava, subtle
Right. Okay.
energy. That's how nature,
Okay.
that's how they're created. And we don't want to do any, but if some people, obviously it depends on every other thing that they do, their lifestyle. If they're sitting at the desk all day, not doing any exercise, if they're more kapha body type, more sedentary, and they're going to eat those things, you're going to have more problems. If you're more vata pitta with a stronger agni, you're more active, and you don't overdo it, then
Okay.
you escape some of for a time.
Okay. So you might be able to do a little bit of that. It's not
Depends
gonna.
on how
It's not gonna.
depends on how
Sure.
much you do it, right? But you can't just
Okay.
tell people
But
don't know
there's
when to
gonna,
quit.
I suppose you will be talking about ways that we can unblock the shrotas when we have messed.
Well, yeah, right. We don't want to do things. We don't want to like.
Yeah.
Well, exercise. Proper amount of exercise helps keep the trotas opening. Vaidya
Mm.
Sure.
Mishra,
Sure.
Vaidya Mishra made, especially in the winter, it's so helpful. He made a shroto shuddhi cooking masala. Shuddhi means purification of the, that's what shuddhi means. And shroto shuddhi, he made a shroto shuddhi tea, which goes to the water soluble areas of the body and the earthy uh, earthy areas of the body is the cooking masala. So a lot of times in the cold weather, see, cold shrinks the physical channels too, just the cold weather. That's one factor
Yeah.
that will shrink our physical channels. So when you add other channel blockers on top of cold weather, you're asking for more
No,
problems.
that's a
So
good point. And with those squashes, I noticed in Divya Alter's book, and again, she's studied with Vaidya Mishra, that she doesn't use those winter squashes. Now that you mention it, uh, she'll use sweet potatoes and carrots and other root vegetables, but
they're fine.
she doesn't use those winter squashes. So
Yeah.
we can still have sweet potatoes, so that's pretty good.
Sweet potatoes don't
I was
block the
gonna say
channel.
sweet potatoes are okay. They're okay.
Yeah,
Sweet
yeah, they're
potatoes
good.
are, yes, sweet potatoes are, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
You talked about the sweet taste being primary, and obviously in the U.S. we have, you know, we don't want to give our clients too much license to, the sweet taste is primary because it's the predominant taste that most people want, and it's a predominant taste in our
Well,
culture.
doesn't mean to go
So
sugar. We're talking good milk, intelligent milk, properly spiced and then consumed at the right time. We're talking good grains and right there. These sweet builds the body. We have to maintain our body. Everything else basically is going to assist that process of maintaining our body.
sure.
Now, but
It's a building.
it's
The sweet
antibiotic.
taste is
Yep.
nutritive and
And it
building.
gives us more energy. Uh,
Sure.
but if you're very kapha, you get a lot of soma automatically from whatever you eat. But by and large, you're not going to, you're not going to just eat bitter foods. No, you're going to just start detoxing like crazy for one thing. You just go bitter, bitter, bitter. You go punch it, punch it, punch it. You're going to create inflammation. Sweet is there, number one, with the other taste there to assist utilizing the sweet taste in the proper way.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I want to let's stay on for a few minutes after we stop the recording and see if Linda has any further questions. But I want to just end our recording because we're at the top of the hour. And so, Jim, we're going to continue next week with this particular
Well,
topic. We've
yeah,
got more to discuss.
we have a lot more. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about next week?
Well, I'm going to talk about where we cut off tonight, the benefits of eating intelligent food. What are the benefits according to Ayurveda? And the texts, these Ayurvedic texts are very detailed, and they have what good food does for us, for our heart, for our brain, for our mind, for how happy we feel, for our aging process. And then they also talk about eating bad food, how they do the opposite, how they increase the aging process and cause us to gain bad weight and have arthritis, and our energy goes down, our immunity goes down. So food is very important, and that's why they told us in detail what are the benefits, the main benefits of good food, and what are the consequences of eating unhealthy food. And there's
Awesome. Well, we
a lot of points. Then I'll try to talk about the nightshades more. Then I'll talk about SVA, general dietary recommendations, more specifically what Vaidya would give a handout to his clients when they came to see him. He didn't give them the cookbook. No, that's too much. He gave them a simple thing to do. And then they can learn more from that point. But, and then we talk about garlic and onion. And then we can talk about, so that's important. And then we can talk about tamasic food, rajasic foods. And it's this Ayurvedic food is very primary. I don't know how anyone can really do Ayurveda properly, just giving people herbs. There are people that do that, but
sure. Awesome.
Yeah,
well,
it reminds me of that quote, the Ayurvedic quote that goes, with proper diet, medicines are of no need, and with improper diet, medicines are of no use.
I know the quote. Yeah, that's a great quote. That you just you won't have to worry about medicine if it's nature's pharmacy is food. So
but there are foods. There are many foods that we can use in place of herbs. Not that there are foods that we can eat all the time for general health and well-being. Then there are very special uses, medicinal usage.
Oh, sure.
For specific diseases, recipes for specific diseases using certain foods versus
can we touch on that a little bit, like some of the most common now that we're going into the winter season, just talk about foods that might be more appropriate. That would be good to add to next week's topics.
The wintertime, the main problem is keeping the channels from being clogged. All the soma will not get transformed into ojas and kapha. It'll create Shleshma, which is a mixture of ama and Shleshik kapha, which comes from the untransformed soma. So keeping the channels warm and open by doing abhyanga, by eating a little more warming spices, but not burning spices like sharp, but like gentle, like cinnamon, clove, some nutmeg,
Okay.
like that.
Great.
But the main problem of winter is a lot of soma. In fact, Vaidya Mishra says soma, winter is he's got a booklet. Winter is your healthiest season, provided you know how to adapt to it. Which
Sure.
means,
It's all
you have,
about
you have a lot of soma there already. You can build up your immunity if you transform and use that soma.
Great. Well, awesome. So let's call it a wrap. We'll continue with this topic next week, Jim. Thanks so much. And
Thank you. Fascinating.